Lift your feet up the way you put your feet down. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that.
And he opened it up. He's like, "Let's go!" So he was fired up. So I was really thrilled to see that.
Whenever Chris harvested that deer, and he only had his bicycle.
Hello and welcome to Call of the Outdoors, the podcast of the Pennsylvania Game Commission. Fall is in the air. September is here, and hunting season is just on the cusp. And lots of things that happen here in September, and we're all getting excited about it. And we have a real special program today. We're going to talk about R3, recruitment, retention, and reactivation of hunters. And it's just such an important topic, and it's so important to us as outdoorsmen and conservationists to pass it down to the next generation. And joining us today are Courtney LaCivita. She's the Division Chief of Hunter Trapper Education and Outreach, which is R3. And from Middle Creek, we have Brian Collett. And Brian is a transplant working here at the Game Commission now, but that came from Ohio. And he wants to talk about a lot of the opportunities and a lot of differences that he had to change when he moved over here to Pennsylvania. And he was very welcome with the amount of public land that we had here in this state. But I want everybody to do one thing. I want you to close your eyes and think about that first time you went to the woods, or that first squirrel, or that first deer, or the first turkey, and just the memories that were created in the ignition, the fire that got started to make you a hunter and a conservationist. And I challenge everybody this fall to introduce one new person to the outdoors, whether it's hunting, trapping, fishing, or just going out there and seeing wild animals. We can introduce somebody new every year. We're doing our job to leave it better than we found it. For Pennsylvania hunters and conservationists, our roots run deep. The episodes we bring to you on the Pennsylvania Game Commission's podcast, Call of the Outdoors, will take a deep dive into exposing the incredible work being done by agency staff and partners, including statewide habitat projects, the science behind wildlife management, and what drives agency decisions. The Pennsylvania Game Commission's mission is twofold: to manage and protect wildlife and their habitats for not only current but future generations, and to promote hunting and trapping in the Keystone State. Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the new set of Call the Outdoors, and what an awesome subject to talk about today, and that's R3. And, September, we're sitting here in September. You can kind of feel the hint in the air. Hunting season's here. And, it gave me goosebumps to say that. But, Courtney, go ahead and tell us, a little bit about yourself and how and why you're here at the Game Commission.
My name is Courtney LaCivita. I am the Hunter Education and Outreach Division Chief, and that's just outreach is kind of a fancy name for R3, which we're going to talk about a little bit today. And I work for the Pennsylvania Game Commission because I am very passionate about connecting people to the outdoors, and what better place to do that than at the Game Commission.
Heck yeah, and you've had many roles here, in your career, and so you talk a little bit about that. What you came into the agency, you were at Kika for a while, and you bring a lot of positive energy to the Game Commission for sure.
So I did start out at once I graduated college, I started out the Keystone Elk Country Alliance. I worked as the Conservation Education department head, so I oversaw all the education there. And then I came to the Pennsylvania Game Commission as the Chronic Wasting Disease Communication Specialist. I did that for a couple years, and then I was fortunate enough to land a position with Matt as a social media specialist. So I ran social media for 2 years, roughly, and then this position came open as a division chief for Hunter Education and R3. And I've always kind of just had that desire to help people get connected, like I said, to nature and to outdoors, and it just seemed like a good fit. So here I am.
Courtney's a hard charger. She's out there all the time and in front of people, and you can tell your passion for conservation every day. I mean, not just, behind the doors, but outside. No matter where you go, you're always putting the best foot forward to conservation, and we're lucky to have you. And Brian, you're a transplant, right?
I am. I am not a Pennsylvania native, transplant from the Buckeye State, but
we are. Just so you know, we are Penn State.
Thank you.
We have the Ohio State University. I'm an environmental education specialist. I work out of the Middle Creek Visitor Center. And, I was a teacher for several years. And once I moved out here, I had doing a lot of substituting, things of that sort, looking for a job. And this opportunity popped up. And I thought, what better opportunity than to be able to put my career choice and kind of marry it with what I kind of spent all my free time doing, which was outdoor stuff. So,
Right.
I've been a lifelong outdoorsman, hunter, fisherman, and I really enjoy, the opportunity to not only work with really people of all ages. We get a tremendous amount of school kids that visit Middle Creek. But the outdoors I'm very passionate about. So to get to discuss and teach people about it is really a perfect fit for me.
Well, we're glad to have you. And, Middle Creek sees so many people, but I do want you to tell the folks out there tuning in what your favorite thing is to hunt.
Oh, turkeys.
Attaboy.
Hands down.
Attaboy. So, Courtney, let's dive in a little bit and just talk about what is R3. And, it's a term that's been around for a while, and just everybody needs to take it to heart and kind of talk about what it is.
Yeah, of course. So R3 is actually a national movement that started in the 1980s. It's surprising because a lot of people don't know what it is, but it kind of like one of those like secrets that are within a lot of state agencies. And
Y'all weren't even born in the 80s, were you?
Right. No.
I was.
So, it's something like we know internally, but I don't know that, the public knows about it that much. But it is a national movement that was started to reverse the negative trend of hunting participation across the nation. So at that point in time, they were kind of starting to see this steady decline in hunting participation, which at that point in time was really scary for a lot of state agencies because hunting through either hunting license sales itself or through Pittman-Robertson funds were really heavily funding state wildlife agencies and the wildlife conservation work that they were doing. I would say that it's been some time now, and I would say that R3 has kind of evolved over time. So now, especially, I can't speak for other states, right? I'm not working in other states, but here in Pennsylvania, we're really fortunate. The last couple of years, we have had insane natural resource sales, and we are one of the states that are still fortunate in, we do see some decline of hunting license sales, but we're still holding strong as one of the states that sell the most licenses every year. And if you're looking at, percentage of land to the amount of people we have, we're really far up there. So we're pretty fortunate. So the funding itself is still important for Pennsylvania. I would say in 2023-24 physical year, our hunting license sales and with Pittman-Robertson probably made up a third of our funding. Mm-hmm. But to say it's like the sole source, like for us, that would probably be a little bit of a lie. So I would say for us, it's about really creating an environment where every Pennsylvania resident feels like if you have an interest in hunting, or if you have an interest in recreational shooting, if you have an interest in trapping, that we're here to support you and we want to help you get out there. And it's more about kind of preserving this outdoor recreation life that we have here in Pennsylvania.
When we look at license sales, I'll just, to recap, 2019 through present, we saw a pretty good decline. It was falling, I think it was 2012 when it really started to, we're losing like almost 5% a year, something like that. Don't quote me on those numbers. But in 2019, we kind of leveled that and actually seeing a slight increase, over the last 3 or 4 years. And that's positive news when you look at it. We had in the 80s, those years we sold 1.2 million licenses. We're so lucky to have that heritage here in Pennsylvania, and that's why R3 is so important to our state, because we have to introduce young folks or new folks to hunting, because hunters are the first line when it comes to conservation. And we not only fund conservation and wildlife, but also are the first tool for management of those game species. And
Definitely
I think it's so important, and I'm excited. I've been excited for this R3 podcast forever because it's close to my heart. And that's where the next question is going to come back to you too, is why is R3 so important?
I think you're kind of talking about like preserving heritage, right? And so part of that's a big thing, right? If we continue to just allow our hunting numbers, trapping numbers, shooting recreational shooters, although recreational shooters are going way up, to just decline, and we don't really try and preserve that, you're not just losing a hunting license sale, right? You're not just losing that, you're losing that heritage. It's kind of like that culture tradition isn't being passed down. And as you get fewer and fewer, you're just going to see less and less. And I would never believe that hunting will cease to exist. I don't think that's going to be a thing, especially in Pennsylvania. I feel like we have, it's just too ingrained in our culture. I don't think it will ever cease to exist, but that support for hunting, that support for trapping, the support for shooting, those type of things, that's what could potentially dwindle if we don't actively fight it. So
Yeah, exactly. If there guys like Brian and I, if there's one turkey left, we're going to hunt him next spring, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's, and I know that's something that it was very important to me with, I have a couple little boys that are, I got one that's been hunting now for a couple seasons. I got another one that he got his first hunting license this year. I let it come in the mail and I was like, Quinn, you got a letter. And he opened it up and he was like, let's go. So he was fired up. So I was really thrilled to see that. So, but it was really important to me to pass that on to them. Something that I'm so passionate about, and they have other things, they love to play baseball and they love to do, they have lots of things they love to do, but that's something that, I'm slowly but surely instilling my passion for that into them. And you see it building in them as we move forward. So,
Right.
That's an important thing for me to have passed on to them. So and actually my wife, who is a new hunter. So it's been exciting to kind of see them grow in that realm.
And we're going to talk about the girls here in a minute, because that's when you look at the fastest growing aspect of our sport, female participants, and whether it's wives or girlfriends or nieces, it doesn't matter. I mean, and here's what I always say about girls: they're better hunters than we are. They're more patient. They shoot better than us. We just did a range event last week with a young lady that never shot a crossbow in her life, and loaded it up, and a bunch of the guys shot, and she went up there and just dead centered it, because they listen and squeeze the trigger, and the bullet or the bolt goes, or the arrow goes exactly where it's supposed to. So they kind of have an advantage. You girls are way better shots than we are, for sure.
Well, I see that. I see that in our archery events that we hold at Middle Creek. I've had more than a few people anymore that they came there and they're shooting and they're shooting really well. And I often I'll say something like, "Gosh, you keep shooting like this, you're going to have to take up deer hunting." And I've had more than a few that have said, "Well, I've really thought about it." So it's a great opportunity, even though we're just there shooting bows. If they get confident with doing that, then the next step might be, maybe we'll go try and hunt some deer with this.
Right.
So.
I watched that even in our NASP tournaments, and we just did a podcast with Maddie up in the Northeast, our national champion, and I was watching her shoot. She's so disciplined and so methodical and so just perfect every time. She executes every shot, and sometimes, like, I know when I'm shooting my bow, I'll shoot a couple times and then I start to lose my form, and then arrows start going all over the place, and you wonder why, but it's just that concentration level that
I have
she
steps.
has.
Got to remember all those
Makes
steps.
a big difference for sure. Yeah, you always see that like at the NASP tournament, you see those kids that really embrace that, and wow, they shoot just amazingly
Lights
well.
out. It's pretty awesome, yeah. So here at the Game Commission, what are we doing to help and create new hunters?
Oh, so many things.
I know. There's a long list.
There's a long list of things. So there's a few that I would probably touch on more than others, but we have a lot of advanced hunter education programs. I don't think a lot of people actually know that we have those, but we do have a successful bow hunter course. It is you can take it online, or it is an in-person course. I would highly recommend the in-person one if you're doing it. It's very hands-on. You're going to learn how to use a tree stand. You're going to shoot bow in class, all these different types of things, how to track a deer. We also have a successful fur taker course, which is also a more advanced. That is in-person only. In order to learn how to set traps, you kind of need to get your hands on the traps.
Get your hands dirty.
That is in person
Or
only.
in one, just to know that it doesn't hurt that bad.
Yeah, that's not. I'm telling you, my finger still hurts from the first time I got stuck in a trap. So we have the fur taker course as well. So we have some advanced hunter education programs. We have virtual learn to hunt program. It is a webinar series. We have done a program on squirrel, pheasant, turkey, deer archery, deer rifle, and last year we did a 3-part waterfowl series. We do have one that just happened in August 20th that was on dove, so if you missed that, you can also see that on our YouTube channel or go to our Get Started Hunting page and you can find it there. All of these are available. The recordings of those webinars are available on our website, so anybody can check those out. That is turning into an in-person program. Everybody get really excited for me. Woo! So we are going to start doing those one day as in-person programs as well. But I would say, man, it's one of the biggest things that we do, at least that my team does, and Brian is a big help with this too, are our mentored hunts.
Yeah. The mentored hunts is really an excellent experience. I just really enjoyed, not only the hunting aspect of it, but just the getting to know the people and, people that in some cases I don't know would have ever had the opportunity to even hunt, or if it weren't for the mentored hunt opportunities. So I've really enjoyed that aspect, and I'm always into teaching people about hunting or talking about hunting, and it's really exciting to see someone be successful at it.
Sure.
And it's exciting to to have those conversations with people about why we want to sit here and what we're looking for in those cases, because that's the stuff that I feel like really will lead people to be successful as they move forward in their hunting is that understanding where you're hunting, and then also all the stuff that comes along with it. If you are successful, how to process a deer and all that stuff. So I've really enjoyed that, and it's really very exciting to see kind of that spark build in people a little bit. I know I had one of the first guys I ever mentored. I always think of this story because we were struggling. We had not seen many deer, and I know he wanted so badly to change blinds the one day, and I just loved the blind that we were hunting out of, and I was like, let's stick it out one more night, and then maybe we'll see about change. I said, I just really like this spot, and we talked about why I liked it and what we had going on there, and then it was like almost dark that night, and we hadn't seen a deer, and I was like, come on, deer, help me out here a little bit, and then lo and behold, like literally we were down to the wire, and all of a sudden, here comes a nice big doe, and he made a great shot on her. And, we were talking and looking over that deer, and he was like, I think I get what you mean by, you just got to stick it out for whatever reason. Obviously you like this spot, but sometimes it's all about just sticking with it and getting it done, and that's important for hunters to understand as well.
Right, the grass isn't always greener. I'm just going to put this out there because I think it's important, and I kind of challenge people that are out there. Number one is we all should try to pass it on somehow every year. We should try to take somebody out there, maybe not necessarily with a bow or a gun, but maybe just go out there and let them see the woods. I remember if everybody would close their eyes and think back to the first time that you saw a buck rub, or the first time that you saw or heard a turkey, whether it's in the fall and just some language or a squirrel bark, it doesn't matter. That's all the experience. And so many times, and I'll be real honest, guilty of it a little bit. I spent my life taking folks hunting all across the country, and then when I came time for my own child, my daughter, to go hunting, my first thing I wanted to do is make sure she pulled the trigger on a turkey. And that was probably a mistake because we forgot to show everything that led up to it. Like my dad taught me, and you and I talked about this, like my grandpa. My grandpa would show me how to sharpen a knife and whittle sticks and just go out there and enjoy it. And it wasn't about pulling the trigger. And I think so much with technology and hunting videos and podcasts, everything that's out there, the information we have today, is we want to take that person, and success is measured in squeezing the trigger. We all want to go home with something.
You can very easily get hung up on that aspect of it. So, and that's something I've with my boys is like with Quinn, he's just to this point been kind of along for the ride. He's not actually officially hunted yet. This year will be the first, but Jude's got a few seasons under his belt now. But one of the things that I've tried really, really hard to do is to kind of set that success part of it aside, and just like you're saying, focus on just that it's just nice to be out in the woods, wandering around and looking at stuff. And I actually almost one of the things I enjoy about the beginning of turkey season is that you got to quit at noon. Because then that gives you that whole afternoon to
Take a
go
nap.
out and you know, and Jude and I have, yeah, right, or take a nap. I've done a few of those over the years too. But, you know, I always try to couple our hunting kind of with doing something else. So we'll, you know, we hunt mushrooms, or we go and we fish, you know, hit a stream and fish for smallmouth, or, you know, just simply wander around and look for box turtles, and you know, all these cool things. And a couple years ago, Jude said it was like one of the best things I think I've ever heard him say is, we had a real slow morning. I don't even know that we heard a turkey gobble. We were just kind of talking about, we had run across some other stuff in the woods and that. And he said, well, you know, there's always something cool to look at. And I said, yes. I said, hot dog, I must be doing something right. Because he just simply enjoys being out there. So, and that if you enjoy being out in the woods, I think you're going to be a whole lot more likely to get out there and hunt.
Well, like you said with your mentor a while ago, that, you know, they wanted to move stands, or sometimes we take it for granted that we have the patience because we've been out there and we know that we should sit there all day, whether it's a youngster or you know, an older mentored hunter. We have to let them enjoy that time out there. If they want to sit there an hour and go get breakfast or whatever, that's fine.
Sure.
Because if you push them where they don't like it, they're not going to come back.
Yeah, you don't want to burn them out.
Right, absolutely.
And I've tried to be mindful of that with them. That, you know, I'll go walk 15 miles turkey hunting one morning, but he may not be into that, or whoever I'm taking hunting. You know, they're exhausted, and you know, you could, like I said, you could very easily burn somebody out. And one of the really great things about hunting is there's 15 different ways to go about it, and it's
nothing, you know, right,
you can
or wrong.
make it very much your own, right? Yeah. So that's, you know, important to instill in those people as well.
I know when I started, we had to be 12, and you had to pass your hunter. We called it hunter safety course, but it's hunter trapper education course, and I couldn't wait for that day. You know, and I remember one of my first archery trips. My uncle took me, and probably shouldn't have done this, but he let me by myself, and it was like an hour after dark, and I was 12 years old. I'd never been in the woods an hour after dark by myself before, and it was a little bit frightening.
Sounds like it.
You had to learn about it, and that's the thing. And talking about mentors, you know, R3 is let's talk about the first of all. It's not just someone new, a 8-10-year-old youngster.
No.
R3 is a big word, so let's talk about what all that is, Courtney.
Yeah, so right now with, you know, we're talking about mentored hunts, right? So the majority of our mentored hunts are more targeted towards adults. And some of the reasons for that is that if you're looking at our license sales data, we don't seem to have very much issues recruiting youth. You know, our license sales data from 12 to 18, just license sales each year just keep going up. And then you hit 18 and life just happens.
How many kids ever? Well, not just kids. How many people graduate hunter trapper ed every year?
100, in between 20 to 30. It varies from year to year. Last year we had probably right under 23. 23,000, and then. But the year before that, we were 26. So it kind of varies in between that 20 to 30 mark. So talking about, like you mentioned, like mentors, I have a team of 6 people, and Brian kind of helps make 7. So if you're talking about, let's even say, I would say a very large number, that heritage of Pennsylvania of generational, that avenue of passing down hunting traditions, it's still extremely strong in Pennsylvania. So even if we said 75% of those hunter trapper education graduates are still going through a traditional avenue of getting into hunting, we still have 25% of them who are not. And we're seeing more and more of that every year. We're seeing more adult onset hunters, people who don't know a single person in their life who hunts, but they want to. They want to learn, and they're coming to the Game Commission to figure out and learn how to do it. And that even that 25%, 7 people can't provide, you know, mentorship to that 25%. Sure. Logically, even if we wanted to, even if we scheduled every single day of hunting season and we're going to take somebody out, there's no way we're going to hit that 25% on our own. And so I would say that, you know, you kind of mentioned it, but if you truly want to see, hunting traditions continue in the state of Pennsylvania, and you want, hunting and trapping, I should even say, for, be available for future generations, we want to pass down that culture.
Which is our mission.
Which is our mission.
Yeah.
If that's what we want to do, we really need the help of our current hunters.
Sure.
And we do have a partnership with the International Hunter Education Association. They have a website that's called learnhunting.org. We partnered with them on that. We are fortunate right now. We are kind of one of the states that are leading the nation in the number of mentors that we have through this website. We have 124 right now. Woo, Pennsylvania. But if you really think about it, that's not hardly anything.
It's a drop in the bucket, yeah.
But I don't know how to explain this website in another way. So it's basically set up like a dating platform. Where,
what's that?
Yeah,
I'm
like an
54
online
years old. I
dating
don't know
app.
what that looks like.
But for new hunters to find experienced mentors. That's what it's really for. And so it allows, experienced hunters or current hunters who want to get somebody new out, to allow them to find somebody in their local area and vice versa. It is only 18 and older. You got to be an adult to participate on it, and no personal information goes out. Individuals have to pass a security check before they can sign up. Whether you want to be a mentee or a mentor, you got to pass a security check. And no personal information is given out until you want it to be. So basically, if you're a mentee, you're somebody who wants to learn how to hunt, and you go and log in, there's essentially going to be this interactive map that pops up, and there will be little pins on the map. And you can click all these pins. In Pennsylvania, you can click these pins, and it'll tell you this person, and it'll say what seasons they're willing to teach you how to hunt in, potentially. And you can message them directly on the app until each other kind of feels they're comfortable. Like, yeah, I'm willing to take you out. And then you can kind of exchange personal information and stuff then. This is something that I would say, if you are a current hunter and you're interested in potentially taking somebody out, this would be a great way of doing it, signing up on there and finding somebody new to take out this year. I think if just even 10% of our hunters would, vow to take one person out this next year, we would make such a huge dent in R3 that we just, as our state, we just can't do alone.
I say we challenge our hunters.
We
really
challenge them.
challenge them because,
I
agree. This is probably going to get some kickback, but like, we live in a place that the tradition's strong, and we see a lot of people that are, I don't know if selfish is the word, but they want to keep it to themselves, and like, obviously a long time ago, like if you knew where there was a turkey, you would never tell a single soul about it, and I get that part of it, but we only get one ride around this earth. I mean, we got one time to get all this done, and we need to help the future of conservation. And even if it's not out there with a firearm or a bow, even if it's just a walk in the woods and talk about nature, and like, finding box turtles or a buck rub, and maybe down to the shooting range. And I can, like, every time I hear a .22 rifle go off, I remember those days. I couldn't wait to shoot my gun. My dad would take me, and I'd shoot a box of bullets real fast, and the smell of gunpowder and just the sound of a .22, that's all part of R3. I mean, learning how to sharpen a knife. I mean, all of that is this outdoor hunting conservationist lifestyle that we live in. And I'd love to do something sometime where we can challenge folks to do that. Like, we look at Commissioner Schwalm. I just saw his Facebook page just this past weekend, and like, he was at 2 different youth field events. I mean, he has devoted his life to R3 and helping kids and helping people get involved in this sport. And he's on 24/7. He's always, it's not his full-time job. He's a volunteer for us as a commissioner, and he is always trying to ignite that spark in someone new. And I think that's all we have to do, get that spark ignited.
Yeah. And I would say, like, if you have never, you kind of mentioned it, but for me, I don't have kids yet. So, I haven't passed down that tradition to a kid yet. I can only imagine how great that feels. Because when I took my first mentee out at John Hines, I'm not gonna lie, you're talking about like the selfishness. I think everybody has a little bit of that in them. Like, you want your hunting season to be great, right? And you don't want something to like mess that up. But at the same time, I would say in the past couple years, specifically within this position, my view on that has really changed. Like, I give up so many of my own hunting days now to take somebody else out. And the reason for that is it almost like taking somebody out and helping them harvest their first deer, like reinvigorated my own passion and love. And it made me think about how you feel that feeling again, that first time feeling, but for somebody else. And it was almost more intense. Whenever
I totally agree.
Malik took that first shot at a deer, I was waiting for him and I was just like shaking for him. Like, I was like, oh, I want him to harvest this deer so bad.
Yeah.
We spent all weekend together. You know, we do like 3-day hunts. So you take them through the whole process. And I was just, I wanted that so bad for him. You know, it's just like same thing with, you know, unfortunately I wasn't able to get Malik to get a deer that weekend. But before I went out on these mentored hunts, you know, I was looking to the season. I'm like, man, I'm going to be working 5 weeks in a row with no days off, literally, like weekends and all. It's like no days off. And I was just thinking about, in my head, I was like, man, it's October. I'm like, man, this is the majority of my bow hunting season.
Right.
You know, it's like, I don't want to give up all these days. And I'm not going to lie, I was kind of going into the situation just kind of a little bit, kind of like a stick in the mud a little bit. And then once I got out there and started doing it, I was like, I want to do more of this. I want to take so many people out because it's just such a rewarding experience. Yeah. Well, I mean, I can't, it's so great.
I think too, like, you know, at least in this, you know, this is coming from me personally, but you know, I've been very fortunate. I've done a lot of hunting and, you know, numerous states, things of that sort in my life. And had a lot of success. And I think you get to a point in your hunting career where you're kind of just happy to be there. Whether it's you that's
Wait till you
pulling
get old.
the trigger or not.
You're not as mad at anything
I'm
anymore.
not as far away from you as you might think. But you know, and for, you know, for me, yeah, I enjoyed watching someone else harvest a deer every bit as much as I would have had it been me doing it. And you know, so, and you have the rewarding aspect of, you know, seeing that person experience that first, you know, that's a big deal. You know, it's a big deal. So, yeah, you know, I feel like, you know, you can kind of, yeah, you want to go out and you want to have your own time and hopefully be successful, but it certainly doesn't stifle the enjoyment of being out there with somebody else.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of information out there too, how if you look at a hunter's life and how like the process through life, you know, and it comes back around. And like for me this year, it came back around. My dad's 83 and I sat with him when he shot a buck, and he hasn't shot a buck for quite a while this year. And it was almost like he was with me when I was 12 years old. Yeah. And it was just awesome. And you know, and I like what we talked about earlier. I think the most important thing that we can do as a hunter this year is try to introduce, somebody to the outdoors, whether it's somebody down the street that maybe it's single parent home, and you know, even if it's go out and catch a fish in a farm pond, I don't care what it is, that outdoor lifestyle, it's way better than a cell phone. I mean, we get so entrenched, and I go to restaurants and I see kids, or you know, you look at the people sitting in that restaurant, everybody's on their phone. And when you go outside and smell that fresh air, and just, you know, to me, there's a odor of fall and spring the same way that's a whole nother, the smell of fall is incredible to me. That's when you know it's time to get in a tree. But we need more mentors. We need everybody to take that responsibility.
Yeah, definitely. And I love what you said too about it. Okay, so maybe you're not to the point where you're like, I want to take somebody out, you know, the full thing. Take them out scouting with you. Maybe there's somebody who just has an interest. Take them out scouting. You don't got to take them to your favorite spot. You don't have to give that up, right? You can take them somewhere else. Sure. You know, I've had people here in the agency. I want to learn how to waterfowl hunt. Haven't done that. Seems complicated to me. Sure. There's a lot of moving parts for waterfowl hunting.
There's nothing to it.
And, you know, I've had people who, you know, will say something along the lines of, you know, if you find the spot, so if I do the scouting and I find a spot, they'll take me. And I'm like, you know what, like, if you want to take somebody out, you don't want to give up your own spot, say, hey, let's go
Don't-
out and
don't fall
scout
for that.
together.
Don't fall for
Let's
that
scout
crap. That's them.
together, and
yeah.
then we'll go to a spot that you choose. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to.
That's like saying
be giving up your own
That's
stuff.
like saying if you find me a turkey, let's go hunting. You know, that's the thing about hunting.
Is that
hunting,
a challenge? Can we do that? Because I can find a turkey.
Yeah.
No, just,
Hunting is hunting. It's not killing.
Exactly.
You know, I hate to
Yeah.
I hate to use that word, but hunting is the whole hunt. It's the process. It's right now. You know, you're getting if you're deer hunting, you're getting your clothes ready, and you're anticipating that time in the tree. That's as much of hunting as sitting there and letting that arrow fly. In my opinion, that whole build up,
Oh, absolutely.
shooting your bow all summer or practicing with your rifle. I mean, that's all part of the process that needs to be built into this when we talk about mentoring. I mean, you can remember as a kid, you remember going to shoot your rifle in with your dad or whoever your hero was at that time.
Right,
I remember those days as much as actually sitting in the woods.
Oh, for sure.
And you know, freezing your butt off is part of it. I mean, that's part of it.
not for me anymore. I got one of those. I got heated dips now.
I've
Freezing
admittedly
my butt off anymore.
not as willing to go freeze my butt off as I used to be.
Well, I mean, when we were
but
kids,
I will do it.
we didn't have these awesome socks and heated vests.
Yeah,
And,
I
mean,
just got it though.
And-
Just got it.
my grandpa would walk to go hunting in his Woolrich. That's what he wore all the time. Rain, sun, shine, 80 degrees, 20 degrees. It didn't matter. That was his hunting outfit. I mean, we're so lucky to live in this age of the best days of conservation and the best days of hunting, because we can be comfortable out there even when it's frigid or pouring down rain.
I think in some cases there's people out there that if you were to ask them if you'd be interested in going hunting, there's people out there that the opportunity has never presented itself. So you might be surprised. It might be somebody that you don't even think they would be interested in, but if you provide that opportunity, they might be like, well, heck yeah, I'll try it.
Right.
And people that, I know I've had that conversation with numerous people at John Hines that they were like, I just never figured I'd ever have the chance, but when the chance came, they were more than willing to get out there and try it. And I think you'd find that in a lot of different people.
Right. Absolutely.
Where I grew up in Ohio, you were almost the odd man out if you didn't hunt, and I've discovered out here it's a little different. I often, when I was, I spent lots of times in schools substituting in that before I worked for the Game Commission, and I would often ask, just out of curiosity, do any of you hunt or, have families that hunt? And it was almost shocking to me how few hands would go up when I'd ask that question, because I was so, you would just assume it's the same way it was where you're from or whatever the case may be. But I think a lot of those people, they may not even know that they want to hunt until somebody asks them to go do it.
And in 1982, when I was 12 years old, if you'd asked every young man in my class if they were going deer hunting that year, 12-year-olds, 9 out of 10 of them would have raised their hand.
Oh, yeah.
That's how it was back
Attendance was very, very light the Monday after Thanksgiving at my high school.
then. Yeah, absolutely, and the Tuesday. And,
Right, yeah.
And there were a lot of people sick
And
on
maybe
Wednesday.
yeah.
Right? But those and honestly, in that time frame too, all the boys were going to give it a try. That doesn't mean they were going to stick to it, but hardly any of the girls were hunting back then, and that's changed quite a bit.
So much. It's changed so much, and that's. I didn't put a plug in, but I'll put a plug in now. That's also why we created the PA Wow Women Facebook group. And
that's not a dating site.
It
That's
is not
hunt.
a dating site. Please don't join that thinking it's a dating site. No, it's a Facebook group that we kind of created for women to provide resources created by women for women to get out into outdoor recreation in general. And that's because we kind of talked about it a little bit here, but it's more than just getting people out hunting. The way we kind of see it is if you have an interest in hiking or mountain biking or camping or something like that, you may not know you have an interest in hunting yet, but maybe down the road you do. So we kind of provide.
We'll take it.
We'll take it. If
sure.
you have an interest in hunting, we want you to get out there. So we'll take it, and that's why we created that Facebook group, was because the female participation in hunting and shooting sports is significantly increasing in the past couple years. And so we wanted to provide a place for support for women to learn about different types of outdoor recreation activities. So we did put that in there.
Absolutely.
And I would also just one more thing. I want to plug one more thing. If we're talking about, being a mentor, and I can say right now, the first time I mentored, I had been hunting for, over 10 years. And I was so nervous going into it too. Like, do I know enough? Like, and I think a lot of people get that in their head is like, well, I'm not experienced enough to mentor somebody. And I would just like to say that, like, whether you have 3 years experience or 30 years experience hunting, you can teach somebody who's brand new something. You know more than somebody who has never stepped a day in the field. Like, so like, keep that in mind. Like, you may not be able to help make them an expert, but you can at least help get somebody else started.
Sure.
So I think that's important. Like, just have the confidence in yourself. Like, you can help get somebody started.
I literally just had almost that exact conversation with a friend of mine, because just kind of out of the blue, he sent me a text one night and said, "Hey, what is there something I can do for the game commission? Like, not job, but just volunteer his time, be involved." And he's a deer hunter. And I said, "Well, would you ever be interested in mentoring a new hunter?" And he was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "But, I've only been doing it for a few years." And that, just like you're saying that, I said, "Yes, but you have been successful at it. You've been doing it now for a while. So yeah, you absolutely can be a good mentor, And so that's interesting that you say that, because I literally just had that conversation.
Yeah, success shouldn't be measured in how many racks you have on the wall or how many turkeys. Success is that you enjoy it every day you go out there, and you bring something home with you, and that's knowledge. And we learn by our mistakes. I mean, that's just how hunting goes. And there's folks out there that are elitists, and and there's folks that just go out there and have a great time and trying to enjoy themselves. I mean, it doesn't matter when you show that person how fun it is. And if you don't make it fun, you don't want to go back. Anything we do. I mean, if we go up there and strike out every time, we try everything we do, we're not going to go play baseball again. I mean, when we were kids, I mean, there's not many people, when you look at Little League all the way to high school, a lot of those kids don't play baseball or softball anymore when they get to high school, and college is a whole nother level. And the thing about hunting is anybody can do it. Anybody can go out there and enjoy themselves and have a good time. And obviously, one of the goals is, you hunt for many different reasons. Obviously, the game that you take home and you put on the table, that's a great end of the hunt, in my opinion. But
for sure.
Let's talk about, another aspect that's big, and we're so lucky here in Pennsylvania to have the amount of public land that we have, whether it's our 1.5 million acres of game lands or our partners open to the public. And let's talk about a little bit of your experience where you come from. And Ohio's a great state. A lot of times people compare us to Ohio a lot because we share borders. I mean,
sure.
When you look at Ohio's numbers, they have 300,000+ deer hunters, compared to 800,000 here in Pennsylvania. Right. And, we almost have, we almost are 3 times more people that head to the field every year. But our public land system is pretty tremendous here. Tell us a little bit about your experience, where you came from.
Yeah, so in Ohio, I was super fortunate to grow up on a 70-acre farm, and then I also I knew a lot of people, so I got permission on some other private farms and things of that sort. And I'm not necessarily a stranger to hunting public land, but I literally have only hunted a few days in my whole life on public land until I moved to Pennsylvania, and it was when I moved out here, it's almost overwhelming to be like, wow, I literally don't have any hunting spots, because I didn't know where to. I had no idea. So I just headed off, and especially when you've spent your entire life hunting on a couple private farms in Ohio, I mean, I've shot, I don't know how many deer out of the same old corner tree stand that I nailed into a big elm tree on my parents' farm. I mean, that's, it's the old corner tree stand. It's a super successful spot.
It's totally illegal in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, right. Yes. But you get very accustomed to, what the deer are doing,
Sure.
Where to go, where you're going to hunt all the time, and things of that sort. So,
it like the back, like your house. It like
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, and the deer very seldom changed what they were doing. So it made it. I don't want to say easy, but you knew what you were going to do every season when it came down to it. And so once I moved out here, all of a sudden you're faced with you have no idea where you want to go, and it almost as much public land as there available in Pennsylvania.
It's overwhelming.
Yeah, it is a little overwhelming. And you head out and you know, I always try to give this advice to people that I think when I first started, you're like, oh, there's a 500,000 acres of public land in this area. And you go up there and like you set out like you're going to hunt all 500,000 acres of it. What you end up doing is kind of wandering around spooking deer because you're looking for like the spot. So something I kind of always, how I changed my approach and what I've tried to tell people I've mentored and things of that sort is that you kind of got to break a chunk of that off and get in there and get to learn that one area rather than to try and tackle it all at one time. Once you do that, then you can kind of start to pick out those sweet spots, like I call them, or to try and spots that are just if you hunt enough or you spend enough time in there, you find those spots that you're more apt to see some deer.
Hunting.
Yeah,
You're moving easy.
Yeah,
Watch putting the wind in your face
Yeah,
if you're deer hunting, or that's what a lot of folks. They rush to get to a stand. Well, there's no reason to do that. I mean,
Oh yeah, for sure.
Especially if you got 500,000 acres.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so I kind of tried to break it down incrementally, and now I do the vast majority of my hunting probably in an area not much bigger than my family farm was growing up, just because but I know that area really well, and I know where I can go and expect to see deer, and and had some success there now. A couple of deer, one for myself, one my wife's first deer last year came out of that area. So, but it's been an interesting experience. It's that kind of just that whole experience of suddenly having to kind of start all over in the hunting world. So, which is I'm sure how new hunters feel when they, just the prospects of going out there and finding a place to hunt and figuring out what the game is doing and things of that sort.
It's overwhelming.
Yeah.
When you think about it, and it's like I know you guys have at Middle Creek especially have done some mentored squirrel hunts.
Yeah,
that's the best place to teach somebody how to be a hunter, in my opinion, because you learn a lot about oak trees and beech nuts or hickory, whatever that food source is out there. You learn so much by squirrel hunting, and then when it comes down to the marksmanship side of it, obviously squirrels aren't very big, and then it come to the table fare, squirrels are incredible to eat.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, my grandma's squirrel pot pie, I'd put it up with about anything in this world for dinner. I mean, there's the dove hunts are doves are tough. They're tough to hit. It's tough to. You can get a lot of action and smell a lot of gunpowder, but you usually don't put many doves in the back of your vest. I mean,
I'm guilty of that.
But that's part of it. That's how we learn by mistakes. We learn by missing. And if anybody that's listening to this said they've never missed anything, they haven't been out there enough, because it's going to happen.
So yeah, and I sometimes I often tell people too. One of the things I did when I moved out here is I kind of like went back to my roots per se, because I used to hunt squirrels all the time when I was younger, and then I just kind of, I don't know, along the line, I was hunting other things and I just didn't squirrel hunt as much. But out here, and I always tell this to our mentored squirrel hunters and just other people in general, that squirrel hunting is a great way to learn a piece of property. You can get in there, you can check out, and like you're saying, you find things like oak trees, which then will equate into probably some deer are going to be feeding on those oak trees.
Or turkeys or
whatever it is you're after. Yeah. So, things like that, those smaller games present a really perfect opportunity to get out and check a place out. And if you got a spot that, you've had in the back of your mind that, one of these days I'd like to get up there and hunt, well, perfect opportunity. Cruise up there one day and take a nice slow walk through an area and hunt some squirrels, and that can really help lead you forward.
Sure.
Based on what you find deer sign wise or turkeys or whatever the case may be. So.
If you look at the past when we had over 1 million hunters, so many of them were way more involved in small game hunting back then than they are today. I mean, and small game. Everybody thinks of deer, and we kind of get guilty of it talking about it here, because that is like the holy grail when it comes to. If it wouldn't be for white-tailed deer, conservation wouldn't be funded the way it is today. Let's just be honest about that part of it. But when you look at hunter retention and hunter reactivation, we have challenges. And I know, Courtney, you're kind of an expert on why you feel, or why we have the data that says that people stop hunting.
Yeah. I mean, one of those, like we kind of talked about, is just when we're hitting that life. It's life. Life changes.
And life's
right?
way faster today than it was
Yeah.
a long time.
I always people are much, I think, spread a little thinner now than they were. I mean, I look at like the different, like when I played sports when I was young. You know, I played tennis, and I went and dug my tennis racket out of the downstairs, found my tennis racket because I hadn't picked it up since the last tennis season.
Right.
And I went out and played. You know, now sports are
all year.
much more demanding than they were when I was younger. I mean, I see that just even in my boys playing baseball. It's just, you know, it's much more involved, you know. And so people's time is at much more of a premium than it used to be.
That's like number one. That's like whenever we do surveys and things like that to figure out why people aren't hunting as much, or like what are the challenges they face to get out. That is probably one of the number one things that people say is just, I just don't have time. I don't have the time. And I think that you see that a lot in individuals who young adults into, you know, like mid 30s a lot of times is they have so many different life changes at that point. You're working a full-time job. Some people are working multiple jobs, you know, to be able to support their families. Kids sports, or just having babies, things like that. All of these things for young adults, a lot of them, that's such a new stage of life for them, going from high school and living with their parents to being on their own, going to college, getting their first full-time job. All of these things just kind of combined all at once into where essentially people just, hunting doesn't seem as high on the priority list of things that need to get done. The nice thing, though, is we are seeing, though, individuals who are in their mid-30s who are starting to kind of get reactivated. You know, they get through these certain stages of life, and then they're like, hey, you know, I did kind of used to like hunting, and we can maybe pull them back in. I don't know if we can get somebody who is, you know, a brand new parent to sleep is important during that stage. I don't know if we can pull those back in, just because there's so many things they're going through with life, but we might be able to pull people back in later stages.
If that's the thing, you know, you can start at any time. It's not, and I always relate it back to, you know, when you talk about mentors and things, and you and I've talked about this a bunch. It's kind of like when you were learning to drive. You know, you learned how to drive. Your mom or dad or whoever your closest mentor was teaching you how to drive, and you were nervous as it got, and you learned how to drive with your friends, or you learned how to drive with somebody other than your parents, because then you could relax and be yourself. And I relay this back to my grandfather. I mean, my dad took me hunting and taught me how to hunting and yelled at me to sit still and pick my feet up when I walked, all that stuff that you do as a mentor. But my grandpa went and sat with him or went hunting with him, he was chill. He was relaxed. He would talk about things that my dad wasn't so strict about, and I enjoyed it more when I went with my grandpa sometimes, because I wasn't getting yelled at all the time for doing something wrong. And I think that's what we have to look at too. Like when you remember somebody that taught you something in the back of your mind, be that person when you're a mentor, whether it was a grandpa or an aunt or an uncle or whatever, and relax, because that person you're there is not as serious as you are about it for the most part. But I want to offer a challenge out there that everybody that's listening and all of our hunters out there that have got to experience Penn's Woods to the nth degree, challenge yourself to show somebody what it's like. Maybe even on a Game Lands tour that's coming up here, you know, in this fall. Maybe just load up on a Sunday and drive through our Game Lands and look and show them what habitat is. You might see a beaver dam, or you know, a bunch of oaks that are, you know, had dropped acorns, and there's turkey scratching everywhere. I mean, whatever it is. Sure. That's being a mentor. It's not necessarily the firearm or the bow part of it, like showing them what it's like outside. And that's why I commend you, Courtney, because you bring a lot of that full circle stuff here to the Game Commission. It's not just, you know, you got to pull the trigger. And I think that's the biggest thing that we've probably done wrong as mentors across the country.
I love that you said that. It's funny because whenever I was Nina, we haven't really talked to her, but she's one of our former mentees who has become a mentor. So within 2 years of learning how to hunt, she's gone from being brand new to hunting, never even considered. She's somebody who never really thought of hunting before.
And lives in inner city Philadelphia.
And lives in inner city Philly. And she has completely went through the entire process of becoming a hunter and stuff. But her first year, she put in so much work to get a deer. She was at every single hunt she could possibly be at. You know, she was at Benjamin Rush. She was at John Hines. Every opportunity she could, she showed up. She hunted. She put in so many days.
And these are mentor hunts you do in
Yes.
just outside of inner city or inside.
And so, yeah, right across from the airport.
Right.
Amazingly in Philly.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, it's weird.
You can
sometimes.
wave to the passengers.
Yeah,
when
it's
they're-
Just
weird
about,
sometimes. But yeah, so she went through this whole thing, and we were driving one day, and it was near the end of the season, and she was getting a little bummed out. First year she hadn't got anything. She put in so many hours, and she had said something about she couldn't. She went through this whole process. She was happy she went through and all this stuff, and she had said something along the line, like, "Can't wait until I'm a hunter." And I just remember like looking at her, and I was like, "Nina," I said, "Did you not
You
go
are,
hunting
yeah.
today?" And she was like, "Yeah." She was like, "But I haven't harvested anything." I was like, "No, you're a hunter." I was like, "You are putting in the time. You're putting in the work. You are going out. You are hunting." I was like, "It's more than just harvesting that deer." I said, "You are a hunter." I was like, own it. Like, you're a hunter.
She just said, we are.
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just I think some people have that, even when they're starting out, they're new. They feel like their hunting experience isn't validated until they've
Until
harvested hunting
Right.
something. Yeah,
Successful,
that's
yeah.
great, and you want to harvest something. That's ultimately the end goal. But if you're just going out and you're a hunter, I think the day that you say I'm going hunting and you go afield, you're a hunter.
You're a hunter.
Just
yeah.
like
You're
a
a
mushroom hunter. You might not find
Exactly.
any mushrooms, but you're hunting
Right,
mushrooms.
right.
But you're
Because
trying.
Because it's hunting. It's not.
Exactly.
It's just like fishing. Fishing's throwing out there and reeling it in. Catching is when you.
Yeah,
That's why I look at hunting. So many times people think it's just pulling the trigger. Hunting is the whole experience, and I love that.
whole thing.
I love that
The whole
about
thing,
that,
but-
that story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I saw Nina at a couple events, and she's out there.
She's amazing.
Oh,
She
yeah.
is.
Nina's very cool.
And she's promoting hunting from her experience and exposing hunting to a lot of people, especially when you get in inner city Philadelphia. I mean, the wildest animal that a lot of those folks have ever seen is a rat or a pigeon, and don't realize what exists in our Commonwealth.
Yeah, she set up this year to come back as a mentor this year, and
Outstanding.
we're getting that. And that's again where we're talking about, like, you don't have to have 30 years experience. We last year we had 5 mentees come back, only having 2 years of hunting experience come back, and we had 5 of them come back as mentors. This year we have more coming back this year as mentors. So we're kind of to the point. It's taken some time, but we're kind of to the point with our hunts where if we can get our mentees kind of going through the program for 2 years, we're kind of getting to the point where we're now getting them to come back as mentors, and they're kind of replacing themselves, not replacing themselves, but they are in the system. And that's ultimately what we want. It's kind of like the challenge you're saying, like challenging them, like take somebody else out. Like,
One of the other
that's-
great stories I've heard from that, I'm sorry about
you're
that,
good.
but is like there's folks that don't have a vehicle and they came on the bus.
oh my gosh, yes, the
or
bus.
walked or rode the
a
bike.
bike.
Yeah.
Yeah, whenever Chris harvested that deer and he only had his bicycle, and we were like, what was, like, we were so, like, we're so happy for him and proud of him. And we were like, this is awesome. And we're like, but how are you going to get this deer home on your bicycle? We gave him a ride, right? We gave him a ride. We put his deer in the truck and we took his bike. But, it's just so many different types of individual come in. And,
Yeah.
And that's
on
the
a
whole
bike.
process.
It's
That's
the whole
part of the
process.
hunt. I mean, if you got to ride your bicycle and haul your deer home,
Do it. Do
that's-
what you got to
yeah.
do.
part of the hunt.
Yeah.
That's
Do what
right.
you got to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, and that's kind of an exciting aspect of those mentees becoming mentors too. Is that in some cases I don't even know if those people realize how much they've probably learned, whether until they get to put it into play as a mentor. Then you realize, well, I do understand why we're sitting here or what, what's going on out here in front of me. And hunting is one of those sports that at least I've always felt that it's great to have somebody take you out, call you in a turkey or whatever the case may be, but it's so beneficial to get out there and do it for yourself, or in this case, mentoring someone else. But until you begin to see, I do know what I'm doing.
It's just like I said about driving.
Yeah.
First day
Absolutely.
you get your license, and all of a sudden, mom or dad or whoever's gone, and you're out there on the road by yourself. It's like, wow, what do I like? You like that's when you learn how to do it.
Sure. Yeah.
We're initially as mentors or as we're putting that spark in that person, and you want to show them everything you can to want to do it again and again and again, and that's the important thing about anything we've ever done. We've all learned something somehow from somebody. I mean, that's what life is all about, and then you go and we're teaching what we know and just sharing that passion that we have. That's when you look at R3, that's what we're trying to do is share that passion in every vehicle that we can, every avenue we can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely the thing, and it takes time, folks.
That's right.
If you're new
It
to this,
doesn't
it
happen
takes time.
overnight.
Like if
does
you got to
take
think
time.
back to your own journey, right? If my dad took me out one time hunting, and then after that he was like, "All right, now you're on your own." I may not be hunting today,
Right.
tough,
because
yeah.
it takes time. Like to go through that whole process and learn everything. It's not going to happen overnight. So I guess this is another thing. Like be patient with the people that you're mentoring. Like understand they're going to have a lot of questions, and it's so funny. Like the little things that you know that you don't know, but it's like ingrained in you, like how to walk, like through the woods,
Yeah.
like and be
Oh, yeah.
quiet. To somebody
Yeah.
who's brand new, they don't know that.
Right.
Like you got to teach them that. Like
Yeah. Well,
try and avoid the dry lease. Like
yeah,
like,
for sure.
Don't
yeah.
drag your heels. Lift
Yeah.
your feet up the way you
Yeah.
put your feet
Yeah.
down. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff
Yeah.
that's just the little things that we need. That's so important.
Yeah, the little things that just come with time. Yeah, and I think it's important, and I always try to look at it when I've mentored people. I always try to really make sure I keep in mind that I'm not a guide. I'm not taking that person out there, and my whole goal. I mean, sure, we want to get a deer, but I'm not. I'm an advisor of sorts. You know what I mean? And so I always try to be mindful of the fact that I want to. You have those discussions about, well, what do you think we should do? Or people that I've kind of mentored in the turkey hunting world, like we hear a bird and it's like, all right, so what do you want to do? What do you think we should do? And it's important to make sure that they are as involved in that hunt as you are. You're not just pulling them through the woods and saying, okay, sit right here. And, that's not what it's about, because you want to provide that learning opportunity. So it's important that you make sure that they're having a say in what goes on and how things happen.
Sit by this tree. Don't blink.
So, yeah,
Don't
exactly.
even if a bug bites
Hold
you,
your
let
breath.
it bite.
Yeah.
I mean, that's right. Well, Courtney and Brian, thank you. Obviously this is such an important topic, and it won't be our last time. But any last words before we head off, because we're about out of tape.
Yeah. No, just like you said, challenge everybody to take somebody out this year. I didn't hit half of the resources and stuff that we have available. So if you are somebody who's new to hunting and you want online resources or things like that, go to the Game Commission's page, look up Get Started Hunting. We have an entire page dedicated with a variety of different resources available for folks who are trying to learn how to hunt.
Right.
So.
And and that comes from even if somebody's interested in being a mentor. I mean, there's lots of information at our website, and we're an open book. We want that input, and if folks have good ideas, reach out to us, because we're all game.
Yeah, I'll throw that out there. My team has an email that goes directly to every person on my team. We try and answer the emails on a regular daily basis. So it's mentoredhunting@pa.gov. So if you're even just brand new to hunting and you have a question, shoot us an email. We'll get back to you. It might take us a day or two. Be patient with us, but we'll get back to you.
We're doing the best that we can, and trying to just promote, because like I said, we get one trip around here. We got to make it the best we can, and we got to pass it on to the next generation, because conservation needs to live on, and hunting is critical to conservation as we speak. And it's so important that we think about it like that. For me too, coming to the Game Commission over 5 years ago, conservation means a whole lot more to me today than it did 5 years ago. And I hate to say that, but it opened my eyes to a lot more things.
Absolutely.
Brian, anything else you'd like to add?
No, I love the putting that challenge out there to people. And on the other side of the coin too, if you're someone that's interested in if hunting's been something that's been on your radar for a while, don't be afraid to reach out to us, or you may well know somebody that does some hunting, and get yourself out there, take an active role in that as well. So
right, and the end result, like we talked about, if you are successful and you bring it home and you get to cook it for dinner. I know I had something a couple weeks ago that you brought in that your husband made that was cured.
So good.
What was it? Cured?
Yeah, salt cured venison.
Yeah.
That is so good. It's like my new favorite way.
And I never had it before. And it's like, you think you've had deer every way possible, but that was a first for me in my 50s. And it was good. It was very good. But thank you so much, y'all, for joining us today on Call the Outdoors, and thank you for some great insight, and good luck to y'all this fall.
Same to you.
Thanks
Thank you
for
for
having
having
us.
me.